Hey, what's up, everybody? My name is Zach Wigal, founder of Gamers Outreach. I've been working on the organization now for 17 years. We've been focused on helping to make entertainment more accessible inside hospitals, and we've been doing that specifically through video games. So we're trying to help restore a sense of joy and normalcy in people's lives while they receive care. And presently, we have our programs in about 400 hospitals around the world, mostly in the U.S., but we have a small international presence as well. And we estimate between all the devices that have been set up, we're probably enabling as many as 5 million gaming experiences each year. So those are kids and families who get to receive a gaming kiosk or are using a save point machine or are benefiting from a Player 2 volunteer in the hospital. We try to help the hospitals manage their entertainment devices and the content so that kids can have entertainment while they're trying to get better. And you guys are up to almost $8,000 in funds raised for this spectacular streamathon, which is pretty awesome. So major props to everybody. That's pretty cool. Thanks for being involved. Yeah, I think you're on a good track for sure. Yeah, well, that's a great question. If you actually go to our website on the front page, it's all the way towards the bottom. It's kind of hidden, but there's a map of the world. And we actually have little blips that show all the hospitals Gamers Outreach has a presence in. And that gets updated. I feel like every 2 or 3 months we go back and like add the new blips that have been created. Yeah, so if you pull it up, um, and so the hospitals are all over the place. In the United States alone, there's if you include adult facilities, there's about 6,000 hospitals, and then of those, depending on your definition, 200 to 300 are children's facilities where they're specifically working with kids, or they might have an adult hospital that also has a section for pediatrics. And then there's an even bigger number worldwide. So state to state, it really varies. But I mean, I'm based in Southern California. We have Children's Los Angeles, Mattel UCLA, Rady Children's down in San Diego. There's a list of facilities just in this area. So really, a lot of our work was started in Ann Arbor, Michigan. That's where I grew up. We started working. Yeah, we started working with a facility called Mott Children's Hospital. CS Mott Children's Hospital, and kind of on accident, I was hosting video game tournaments as a youngster. One of my events got shut down by a police officer who thought video games were corrupting the minds of America's youth. And long story, you can read about it on our website if you're curious. I was frustrated because at that time there were a lot of stereotypes and misconceptions around video games and the gaming community, and the game industry was taking a lot of flack for different things that would happen that were covered by the media. And my event got shut down because this particular person thought that kids were training themselves to be killers by playing games like Halo. And that to me just seemed kind of ridiculous. I had okay grades, had plenty of friends in school, was on sports teams, was in a band, and I liked going home and playing video games. It was totally a normal thing. So I organized a new event for charity to try to illustrate, hey, here are all the positive things that actually can happen when we get together around what we're excited about. And through that process, accidentally discovered the local hospital was having a hard time providing kids and families with things to do while they're receiving care. And as a gamer, it just seemed obvious to me, like, well, if I was in the hospital, I wouldn't want to play video games. Why don't we give all the kids video games? And that's how we started building the gaming carts, actually, was we realized the hospital, if we were to buy a bunch of handheld devices and, gift things to the kids one by one, that would be neat, but ultimately we would have to keep fundraising for the same things over and over and over again because those devices, kids go home with them, they get lost. So we started building these video game carts as a way for the hospital to maintain existing equipment and wheel it room to room and allow kids to take turns or have access to it while they're receiving treatment. And then a neighboring hospital found out what we had done. They asked for support. And then at the time, I was working for a marketing agency, helping to produce video game competitions. So I worked on like Call of Duty XP back in the day, Call of Duty Championship, and a list of other events. And friends in the industry were like, "Hey, man, I saw you made that donation to that hospital. Could we do that for Children's Los Angeles or Seattle Children's?" And I was like, "Well, yeah, sure. I mean, if you raise the money, like, I don't see why we couldn't do that." So very slowly over the years, a lot of our proliferation in these different hospitals was really the byproduct of communities, individuals coming forward and saying, "Hey, I'd like to support the hospital in my backyard," and folks raising the money to make that happen. So yes, we are now in a number of hospitals, but a lot of it has been driven by fundraisers like Spectacular Streamathon, where different communities are saying, "Hey, like, we're based in Austin, Texas, or we're based in name your city, Chicago, Illinois, and we'd like to see our local hospital benefit." And so that's what's been so cool is we as Gamers Outreach do the work to construct these things, maintain them, support them when they're in the hospital, and the community has been responsible for helping make their existence possible at all.
Oh yeah, cool. No, definitely. That's really cool, especially like the fact that it's slowly been getting more and more traction. Things kind of go by.
Yeah, it started as a passion project. I enjoyed hosting video game competitions. That was where my interest was initially, and then really after one of our first events, and as mentioned, discovered the hospital is having this challenge, it just struck me as almost like a calling. I felt like as a gamer, this was a way for us to take our passion for gaming and combine it with a charitable purpose. And it just hit every chord with me. It was fun. I liked organizing these events. People had a good time. And then it was helping other people. I was like, why should we ever stop doing this?
Yeah,
like, as long as it doesn't interrupt like other things I'm doing, like, this would be great.
Right.
And that's how it was for about 7 years. So Gamers Outreach started in 2008. And I had no intention of it being a full-time job. I just thought, hey, this is cool. People like it. Let's, we'll keep up the good work and support hospitals. And then two things kind of happened simultaneously. One was I started realizing that this challenge of providing activities to hospitalized families was not limited to my local hospital. It was a difficulty in every hospital. A lot of hospitals, the emphasis over the years as the healthcare environment has evolved, it's been on research and treatment. And because of that, quality of life has been taking a backseat. And it's not necessarily an intentional thing. It's a matter of priority. If you go to the hospital, the goal is to get out of the hospital.
Right.
But because of that, we work with kids and families that are sometimes living in these facilities. They might be in the hospital for months, in rare cases years, if they have something going on where they need to have access to equipment or medical personnel. And so I started realizing this is actually a problem, I think, worth solving. How can we help hospitals manage play and entertainment, access to the outside world at scale across hundreds of rooms in their facilities? And so that was where I think I kind of slowly started realizing this was something that, I wanted to be working on and felt compelled to help address. And then thankfully, we started also receiving more and more support for our work over the years to where it actually did start interrupting my full-time job in college.
Oh, really?
Yeah, that was when I kind of had to make the leap. It was, I tell the story, like it was like 2014. Someone tried donating 900 Xbox consoles to us.
Holy crap.
And the semi truck showed up at my parents' house and was like unloading pallets on the driveway. And at this point, we had already amassed probably 5,000 or 6,000 video games in my parents' basement because people have been donating equipment over the years. And my parents, thankfully they were very supportive parents. They weren't really doing anything with their basement anyway. That was my justification. Like, Mom, Dad, think of the children. Like, let me use this for storage. And it looked like the storage room of a Best Buy. Like, I'm not exaggerating. We had stacks. We had probably 1,000 original Xbox titles alone. People were donating stuff all the way back to Atari 2600. Yeah. And, at this point, my parents were like, okay, the semi truck shows up. They're like, that's it. We got kicked out of the basement. You need to go find a place outside the house. We're done. You know,
Right,
this is
right.
the
You're
line.
officially too big now. You're gonna have to start
Yeah,
moving.
yeah. It was just, I mean, it was a lot of stuff, right? That was being
Mhm.
dropped off. So that was the day we got kicked out of the parents' basement, and simultaneously at my work, we had like a product launch that day, and so it was just kind of this moment where I realized like I've got this driver on one end of the phone who's like, "Hey man, where do I put these Xboxes?" And then I've got my boss on the other end of the phone that's like, "Hey man, can you help me with this product launch thing?" And I'm kind of, you know, was torn between the worlds. So yeah, it's been a full-time job since 2014, and
Mhm.
now we have about 20 people who help support the work we're doing in different ways, and everyone works remotely. We have in Texas is where we assemble all the gaming carts and ship them out,
Mhm.
and then we also have kind of some core folks back in Michigan where we started. And then these days, I'm personally based in Los Angeles because a lot of our partners out here, a lot
Right.
of our board members live out here. And a lot of the video game industry kind of exists out here,
Yeah,
so it's
you
just
know,
kind of
it's a pretty good
easier.
place to play. Yeah, like,
Yeah, people pass through regularly,
yep.
so for the sort of work that we do, it's helpful to be here. And selfishly, I enjoy Los Angeles as well. So yeah, we now support a bunch of hospitals worldwide, and I think the gaming carts are the kiosks that we build that help make an Xbox or PlayStation readily accessible, or a Nintendo Switch, you know, all
Mhm.
the consoles really.
Yeah.
It's a device that helps the hospitals manage hardware. And then we also provide ongoing support. So we have a couple people on an operations team, and they will respond to support tickets that we get from hospitals. We probably get like 3 to 5 per day. So not a ton, but enough that like, you know, keeps one person busy. And usually those support tickets are like pretty basic, you know, hey, the HDMI cord is unplugged. What do I do? So thankfully those things are pretty easy, but sometimes we get things that are more complicated where like maybe a child has uninstalled video games and the hospital's like trying to figure out,
How
you
to get
know,
them like
how do we get this
reinstalled,
back?
right?
Yeah. Yeah. So that's where we come in and help provide that ongoing support to the hospitals.
That's awesome. So I guess one question that I especially have is, so you go through, you've been like doing this since said like 2008,
Yep.
2007,
2007. Yeah.
2008. So
Yeah.
I guess obviously right now the go-kart looks fairly stellar. It's fairly like fancy and what. How did like the initial like prototype, did you like, how did you assemble those? Like what did all that end up being? Is it basically just like a cart that you would buy and then just set the systems on top of, or
Yeah, yeah. It's when we started the program, you know, I wish I have the drawing somewhere, but
oh
the
boy.
original gaming cart
Yeah.
looked like literally like a cabinet on wheels.
Oh
It was
really?
like a big, like a square rectangular. I mean, it was really bulky.
Yep, yep.
And the idea kind of spurred from, you know, when we started interacting with the hospital and I was explaining to them, hey, hi, my name is Zach. I host these video game competitions for my friends at school. We think we're going to be able to raise some money for you guys. We'd like to buy video games.
Mhm.
What's kind of special about Mott Children's is that they are a teaching hospital. They're affiliated with the University of Michigan, and
Oh
so
cool.
their staff are probably, I think, they're a little more willing to provide education to
Mhm.
young people that are interested in getting involved in the facility. And so they were nice enough to say, "Hey, young people, that sounds like a cool idea. You know, why don't you come visit our hospital and we'll show you what some of our needs are." And we weren't really raising a ton of money relative to some of their other donors, right? But
Right.
they were still nice enough to take the time to say, "Yeah, come by and visit us. We're happy to arrange a meeting with you and we'll kind of tour you around the facility." And by getting the chance to really learn about the hospital environment, we discovered, as mentioned, you know, the hospital, they were very interested providing kids with handheld devices. But I noticed as a donor, those things were constantly being replaced.
Mhm.
And when I was growing up, I had this like kind of a shelf that my video games sat on,
Right.
and it had wheels on the bottom. I could move it around my room. And I thought to myself, maybe we could make something like some sort of secure cabinet that holds the video games, right? And the
Mhm.
hospital said, "Hey, we like where you're going with this, but let us show you like some of our existing medical equipment because this thing looks a little bulky, and maybe you could create something that is similar to what we have already."
Oh, okay.
So initially, when the gaming cart program started, we raised money, and then we actually purchased existing computer carts that
Oh.
are used in hospitals.
Oh, okay.
These things are called workstations on wheels or computers on
Oh
wheels.
yeah, no, I'm familiar with those.
Yeah, people would recognize them if they saw them. It's one of these things that you probably see it even in like an airport and you just don't think about it.
Hmm.
And then, yeah, so hospitals have all these different types of carts that help accomplish different tasks within their facilities. They might have one cart that's like maybe it's different sorts of patient medications,
Hmm.
and there's a computer attached so they can like update charts throughout the hospital. So, they'll wheel a cart in, they'll help provide treatment to somebody, and then they update on their computer like, okay, Zach was in the hospital and I helped him do this, this, and this. And then that computer connects back to like the overall system that's like keeping track of patient data. So these carts are used in all sorts of different ways. We found some and basically like took off all the stuff that was meant for medical purpose.
Hmm.
And we added a shelf that could just fit an Xbox. And we said, hey, ta-da, here's your gaming cart. But the hospital loved it. They were like, hey, this thing is awesome. And it seems so obvious kind of in hindsight, like why not just take the computer card and put an Xbox on it? Like, there you go. Now you have a gaming kiosk. And that's how we started. Originally, we were repurposing existing medical carts to help patients provide video games, help the hospital provide patients with video games. The challenge we started having was so at first we were just building like one or two of these a year, right?
Hmm.
Pretty minimal. I would do a fundraiser. We would take the money, donate to the hospital, and then it was okay. Okay, guys, see everybody next year.
Right.
In 2009. When we started getting to a point where we were building like 10 units, 20 units, 30 units a year, the medical companies we were working with, they would like release new versions of their carts.
Oh, okay.
And these new versions had like a bunch of extra features that had nothing to do with video games.
Oh.
And the carts were becoming more expensive. The hospital staff would get confused because they'd see all these like security buttons and think, oh, this has something to do with the Xbox down below. And it's like, no, you just need to turn the Xbox on, ignore all this other stuff.
Yeah, right. This is all extraneous. This is not meant to be used.
Yeah, and then on top of that, there was like some manufacturing delays as well, where they would be in the midst of building their new unit, and there was sort of a delay in getting things to us, and then we would still want to customize the cart. So we just kind of got to a point where we realized, we want to be building these. They're getting too expensive, and we also need to like have a surplus on this so that we can reinvest in the organization. Like those Xboxes I told you about, we had to find storage for those, right?
Yeah, right.
Okay, what do we do if like the cart's expensive and we need to ship it somewhere and it's more than we thought it would be? So we realized like we want to be building more of these. We need to do it on our own. So we actually engaged like an industrial design firm to help us build the gaming carts we've been creating so far.
Right.
And then those were actually, we got a grant from another organization, Child's Play, which is like another video game charity.
Oh, okay. It's not like a horror thing.
No, not to be confused. Not to be confused with
like the Chucky or whatever. Yeah, sorry. Anyway, continue.
No, it's okay. Yeah, but they've been around in the industry for a long time.
Oh, okay.
They actually they were founded by the guys who started Penny Arcade.
Oh, really? That's awesome. I didn't know that.
Yeah, great cause. They actually were one of the first groups to really even think about providing entertainment to hospitals through gaming, and they started by fulfilling like Amazon wish lists for hospitals. These days, they've been like providing grants to different hospitals, like helping them fund staffing positions, and they've been funding different technology projects. So they actually provided us with a grant to build the gaming carts we have now. And those units, we were able to build those in the hundreds of quantities. And then last year, we announced that we've been working on sort of the new version of the go-kart that literally next week, we're going to have the first units.
Oh, seriously?
Assuming shipping works out fine. Everything's
fingers
in transit right now. So yeah. And those units we're building in the thousands of quantities.
Holy crap.
So yeah, it really evolved. It evolved from, us kind of building what's referred to as like a minimum viable product, like here's something that works, that communicates the idea, to, hey, these things are really useful for hospitals. We want to be building more. We're getting requests for more. And now we're kind of at a point where, we also we'd like to see the initiative exist worldwide too. We get requests from hospitals and other places, and being able to ship the units easily is going to be really helpful. So yeah, that's a long-winded answer to your question.
No, honestly, but very informative. I know, like, sorry, I'm going to send you down another rabbit hole. Obviously, the next question I kind of have. So what is the actual like average life cycle of like these carts then? because you're already coming out with the next generation. And I mean, obviously, gaming consoles updated throughout the years. So I guess, how are you going about some of these upgrades? Like, how long do some of these carts last? I understand that obviously they're meant for children, so sometimes they might get a little roughed up here and there. But like, as far as like technology, life cycle, what does that really look like? Like, are there still carts? Like, are there the original proof of concept carts still out there?
There are,
Oh,
yeah. And
really?
it's a great question because when we think about the carts, our goal is really for the carts to be a tool for the hospital
Hmm.
that they can use for whatever purpose they'd like. So if a hospital says today we want a PlayStation, tomorrow we want an Xbox, and the next day we want to put a laptop in that has some virtual reality games installed, all up to them. We'll usually deliver the gaming carts with kind of like a starter kit, if you
Yep.
will,
Yep. Yep.
where like we like to deliver the carts with an Xbox, but if a hospital requires a PlayStation or Nintendo Switch, we do that too. Xbox is just convenient for us. Like
Right.
we have the Xbox team has been very supportive of our work over the years, and they've donated game codes and such. So it's a lot easier for us to equip the carts with an Xbox console.
Oh, yeah.
And as well, so yeah, I'd say the average life cycle of a cart, it's less dependent on the console per se, more dependent on um, well, I guess how do I say this? It's less it's very rare that a cart breaks down. So
Right.
we have carts that have lasted. I mean, they were donated maybe in 2008, 2009 that are still around, and so those units have gotten quite a bit of mileage. And yeah, to your point, sometimes anytime you gift things to a hospital, I mean, one thing just to kind of keep in mind is these are institutional facilities. There are hundreds of thousands of people coming through some of these hospitals each year. Just for perspective, Children's Hospital Los Angeles, they posted an annual report recently. I believe they registered 700,000 patient visits in a single year.
Holy moly!
Now,
that's just like one hospital.
Right. Now, in fairness, they're in a big city, so
Right.
they might be a little more. They might skew a little more towards being a larger place, but still, I mean, you think about Children's LA has those numbers, but right down the street is also Mattel UCLA,
Yep.
and 2 hours south is Rady Children's, right? And so hospitals are really hubs of the community. They connect everybody from every walk of life, every age group, and they are dealing with all range of circumstances. People who are coming in for a very simple checkup, to someone who needs a major surgery, to someone who really is dependent on some of the equipment that might be in the hospital. So when it comes to how our gaming carts fit into all that, sometimes you have kids that are very excited. They think the cart is like a piece of playground equipment. It's not, but they think that anyway, and they jump on it and use it like a skateboard. That's not what we try to adamantly tell people. Do not do that. We don't want the cart tipping over or something. So the carts are built. I mean, they're made with steel and plastic that's UL certified and such. So it's unlikely the cart would randomly break per se. Yeah, I mean, unless if someone pushes it down a staircase, like of course it's gonna.
Well, yeah, I mean, at that point you're testing its limits to the max.
Right. I mean, it's we can only do so much here, but but most of the time the carts go into the hospital. They exist indefinitely, and really we're building the new carts to accommodate like consoles getting bigger, which is not something I would have anticipated happening, to be honest.
No, especially when you see like the PlayStation 2 go to like the PlayStation Slim or something like that, or like the Xbox go to an Xbox Slim. Like now seeing these new consoles be like fridge size is kind of crazy.
Yeah, it is pretty funny. I mean, I'm sure things will get modified, and also too there are like more digital based platforms nowadays and such. But so the go-karts we have to date, those will continue to exist, and they'll be able to support all the consoles, I guess from Series S before. And then the new carts we're building, part of the reason we instigated the process was, oh, look, the size of consoles is changing for the first time in 15 years or so, which is a pretty reasonable lifespan, I think. So so yeah, hopefully the new carts, as long as consoles don't get much bigger, then these new carts should be more than fine for a
I was
long
gonna say,
while.
are you gonna have to start making these carts to be able to fit like a full tower at some point? Like, yeah.
Yeah, it's funny. We do. I mean, people do ask sometimes about like PC gaming
Yep.
in these places, and it really comes down to the ergonomics of what situation is somebody in. Like, if I'm in a hospital bed, does it make sense to wheel a cart up to me? Is a laptop better? So the carts really serve like a specific purpose in hospitals. Some of the hospitals we work, there's not a lot of hardware that even makes content available to patients, and then there might even be rules around how people bring their own devices into the hospital. And sometimes people also just don't have the time to bring their own device to the hospital. They're
Right.
suddenly in the hospital and nobody was expecting to be there, but now they're there for 2 or 3 days, and it's like just long enough to be pretty annoying. But perhaps there's enough going on that you don't call your friends and ask them to go and get your Xbox out of the living room and bring it to the hospital, right? So,
Right.
so the gaming carts are really intended to be a tool that make AAA video games accessible, at any moment, relatively quickly.
Oh, that's awesome. So now, what you're telling me then is that there exists a go kart out there, still with Xbox and still with like Halo 2 and everything.
Maybe with Xbox 360.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
probably. Yeah, yeah, not the original
No,
Xbox.
okay,
We
okay.
Yeah, actually, and I mean, unless someone has put one on that I'm not aware of, which is very possible. Yeah,
Someone's like, yeah, we're just get this retro system in.
yeah, could be. Honestly, I actually wouldn't be surprised if that has happened. But
Oh yeah.
yeah, if it has happened or is happening right now, I haven't gotten any emails about it. So
Oh well,
I'd love to see that. Though that would be pretty funny.
get a tech support ticket one. Now the Xbox won't turn on. Oh yeah, does it have a red ring? No, it's like this big bulky thing. What?
That actually would be a really, oh my gosh, I hate to say this, but that would be a really funny April Fool's joke.
Yeah.
If someone were to like troll our support and
Yeah.
like tell them I've got a device in the Xbox in the go kart, and it was like the original Xbox.
Oh, the original Xbox or like even like a Sega Genesis or something. Just like
Yeah,
the cartridges don't work. The cartridges.
yeah, that's actually really funny. That's a good idea. I might do that to our own team, to be honest. I'm gonna keep that in mind.
There you go. Yeah, you can take that one from.
Yeah, yeah.
So, I guess one thing that I know a lot of people is so right now, what is the number one game? Is there a specific game? Do you know?
Yeah, I mean, I would say Minecraft is probably
Oh, you know
the
what? That
most
makes
popular.
sense. No, but I should have thought.
Yeah.
Especially with Microsoft helping you out with all the stuff. Yeah, no, that makes.
Yeah, I mean, it's also just you think about like you might think Fortnite or some of the shooting games. Some hospitals are a little more sensitive to shooters,
Yep.
even if it looks like Looney Tunes.
Right.
Because they might have kids who have been mixed up in some of that stuff. So
Yeah,
in real life, so like they might just say, hey, we don't want anything that has this, even reminds people of that sort of thing. But Minecraft, Rocket League, some hospitals, it depends on the internet connection. Roblox, is always popular. Basically, all the things kids like to play, outside the hospital is the same, inside the hospital. Yeah.
Oh, okay. So, actually, I guess I never Xbox, but anywho, I digress. Now I'm just going on a random rant. It's unnecessary.
Well, no, it just depends on like the systems that the hospital puts in or what's accessible.
Yeah. No. So then, let's. And we've been really blowing through. I guess. Like right now, you've gotten fairly large. What does the process look for a hospital? You mentioned that you get like requests and you get various like offers or grants or whatnot. So like how say one of my local hospitals wanted to get a go-kart, like what do they have to go through to
there's a few different pathways. If someone represents a hospital, we'd ask them to contact us on our website. There's actually a form people can fill out if they want a go-kart specifically. They can request that unit. I'll also mention quickly, we do have other programs as well outside of the go-karts. We have Player 2,
Yep.
which is like a volunteer initiative that some hospitals really benefit from. Other hospitals are in a position where they've got plenty of volunteers, or maybe they have a full-on gaming program even nowadays.
Mm-hmm.
And Player 2 is really intended to find a select number of volunteers who can commit a semester or maybe up to a year or two of going to the hospital and really providing ongoing support, playing games with kids, helping solve tech, issues that arise, etc. And then we have our Safe Point program as well, where we've started putting these like really fun high-tech vending machines in hospitals.
Yeah, I did look at those.
Yeah, it's pretty neat. We're just starting it. We launched it like a year or so ago, and right now we've been like in the process of we're like looking into like a different type of machine that's a little easier for us to configure, has like different software on it. But we're pumped because these machines, the idea is for us to put like toys and game codes and swag items. So if kids are going through treatment, they can look forward to going to the machine and maybe to get like some prize for completing a part of their treatment at the hospital.
Right.
So it's just a way to kind of encourage kids and uplift their spirits, before they go home. We're ultimately hoping to turn these into like prizing hubs as well, where we'd like to organize video game competitions within the hospital, and then
okay, there you go.
allow like we might work with like imagine a brand donating like a really nice headset or something.
Right.
Like, hey guys, today's the Rocket League tournament. Our sponsor this week is this company, and in the vending machine is like the very rare prize that you can win. So
oh man, that'd be awesome.
Yeah, our managing director Walter coined this phrase. He's like, we should turn the hospitals into Chuck E. Cheese. Like,
yeah,
let's
Chuck
make
E.
it.
Cheese.
Yeah, like let's make it like where people are like getting tickets, like they're winning stuff. This could be really fun. So that's kind of like the ultimate goal of it. Is we're trying to build it up to this point later. So we're just in the very beginning phase, but yeah, I think if you fast forward like 2 or 3 years, we're hoping it looks like a lot more integrated and sophisticated than it does presently. But
right.
So yes, the way hospitals can get any of those programs really is by reaching out on our website,
Okay.
contacting us, and we have a wish list that we keep track of. So hospitals can reach out to us and say, hey, we're familiar with Gamers Outreach. We would like to have some of your programs here in our facility.
Well, yeah, no, I did see.
Yeah,
that's pretty rad. So like it has like all the people looking to get hopefully a go-kart or two work through that.
Yeah, and I'm not sure where I don't know when we last updated the wish list, but we have like an internal document, and then sometimes it takes us a little longer to like take that internal document and put it out into the world. But I think last I heard, I think there's over like 1,000 requests for go-karts, like in terms of the units. So
holy moly.
Yeah. There's quite a few. We've been working on like a survey with our hospital partners lately, and we've been asking people like, hey, and these are the hospitals we exist in presently. So, hey, you've received 5 go-karts or 1 go-kart or 20 go-karts or whatever it might be. How many more would you like? Would you like any more? Would you like other programs, et cetera? So we're trying to get a sense of, what the capacity is. And it's a lot. Yeah. So there's a lot of hospitals that are looking for support. And then what we do as Gamers Outreach is we'll turn around and say, hey, let's do a fundraiser like Spooktacular Streamathon and try to raise the money to help these hospitals get these items. And that's where, when the community comes forward, we'll try to connect people with hospitals on our wish list, or we try to give we like people to have the preference first, like if you're really involved with a particular hospital, maybe you were treated there or had a family member who was treated there, or, whatever it might have been, ideally, I think it's great for people to support their local communities in their own backyards first. But certainly we have donors who are like, hey, this is just cool. I'm wherever the greatest need is, like happy to provide help. And that's when we sort of go through our wish list and look at, okay, what's the order of requests that we got and who's next on the list. And then sometimes we have hospitals that will, maybe they have budget and they're like, hey, outright, we want to increase the entertainment offerings to patients. And maybe they have donors internally, and they've like, we've had hospitals who they'll get their first go-kart and they'll say, this thing is amazing. Holy cow, have we not had this before? We need more. We want more now. And we've had times where like, and we had one instance where, and this happened multiple times, but there's one example. We had a parent who made a donation because her child had been playing on the gaming cart regularly.
Oh, really?
And yeah, and they were like, hey, our kids using this thing all the time. The hospital needs more of them. Let's build more. So yeah, that's been that's been a sort of a regular occurrence.
That's awesome. Well, I'm glad to see that LAN parties are not dead. Local tournaments are. And you know, you make a fair point, especially with some of these other programs. We've been touching a lot on these go karts. So tell me a little bit more about this Player Two volunteer opportunity.
Yeah, we launched this prior to the pandemic,
Mm-hmm.
and I think right now we're even figuring out, how to bring it back. It exists in like a little form across a few hospitals.
Mm-hmm.
We noticed years ago, hey, once hospitals start getting all of these devices, they really could use some help overseeing them. In 2014, is 2014 or 2015, like we helped Mott Children's install Xbox consoles in every room of their hospital. And once that had been done, the hospital realized, oh, wait, we need someone who can go and manage all this equipment. Are we updating consoles, loaning games out to kids, et cetera? And, the hospital had a staff member who could do that, but this person was a bit overwhelmed and there was just more work than was
Right, right.
reasonable for one person. So what we decided was, well, what if we provided a volunteer opportunity where we could help the hospital find video game enthusiasts
Mm-hmm.
who could come into the hospital and become volunteers, but with a specific focus on supporting video game activities. Almost like Best Buy Geek Squad, but for the hospital
Right,
kind of
right,
thing.
right.
But also to play games with kids. I mean, we sometimes have kids, there's kids who are like, they're by themselves or their families are there, and but they don't really have a lot of opportunities to socialize. And so like providing a little bit of mentorship or, just helping kids do things in the video game can be really fun. And, we had one of our first Player 2 volunteers. He had been treated in the hospital for a certain heart condition when he was younger. And just by coincidence, he ended up supporting a young boy who had been diagnosed with the same heart condition.
Oh, wow.
And he had just arrived at the hospital. He was kind of nervous about his family, his parents were sort of nervous about all of it. And this volunteer was able to talk to them about everything he had gone through because he'd been there, done that, and really helped kind of normalize everything for them and eased a lot of their concern around what was going on.
Right.
Because he was able to say, hey, everything you just got told is totally normal. Here's what's going to happen. Here's how this will all play out in the future. You're going to be fine. And that really created a sense of relief. He ended up really, just being of support to the patient and this the kid's family. And so that I think is just kind of really cool, right? Where like it's just helping across the board. Here's the hospitals getting support around the tech. You have a kid who's like kind of nervous about what's going on. Someone's able to come along and say, hey, it's all going to be okay, and by the way, they got to like play Minecraft together and build cool stuff.
do all kinds of fun.
Yeah, so that's kind of like Player 2 is there. The one thing is it's and we're gonna revise our website I think in a month or two to communicate this a little better, but it is sort of a very limited opportunity. The hospitals can only take on so many volunteers, so it's something where like one hospital might be interested in like 2 to 5 Player 2s. So if like 40 people apply, we're even kind of right now defining like sort of a review process of like, okay, how do we like prioritize these applications? One thing from our standpoint is we would really love to see like medical students involved with Player 2.
Yep.
Typically medical students have to kind of put in volunteer hours in hospitals anyway to get familiar with the environment.
Tap into that resource. I get you. Get that
entirely. Yeah. So if there's any medical students out there, hit us up. That's kind of, this is a recruitment.
No, if you're listening, please pay attention. Player 2, Gamers Outreach.
Yeah. We're trying to, reach out to students that need to like put in certain number of hours, just going through the hospitals initially. Because you figure they're the type of people who can make like a longer term commitment to being present, and for them as well, there's like a sense of relevance that is pertinent to their careers as well. So that's helpful.
Yeah, no, and especially being able to have the opportunity to volunteer and play video games, I'd say that's pretty solid.
Yeah. I mean, exactly. It's like, hey, man, you got to put the hours in anyway.
Yeah,
like,
right.
Yeah, you may as well be playing video games. This would be great. Yeah, totally.
Oh, that's like so. You mentioned that save points are a newer thing, and that you already have like a bunch of plans for them. So I guess what really inspired the creation of it. I know like giving some form of like physical memorabilia is pretty neat. What's the origin behind that?
Yeah, there's probably two or three things. One is playing Final Fantasy VII Remake
Yeah.
too much over the summer, over
Yeah.
like the pandemic, and was like, man, these vending machines, this would be kind of cool. That's where the name came from,
Oh, really?
actually.
Was it?
Yeah, yeah. I was going through Remake, and so one of our longtime supporters is this company called Love Your Melon.
Oh,
They
love
make
your melon.
beanies. Yep. Yeah, they make beanies, and one of the things they do as like sort of a charitable initiative is they actually donate their beanies to infusion clinics, so where kids get treated
Oh,
for cancer and
yep,
whatnot.
right,
So,
right.
if you start losing hair during that process, you can get one of their beanies and sort of leave the hospital. And they had placed some vending machines in these hospitals to distribute the beanies.
Right.
And so instead of like making gift bags over and over and over again, they were like, hey, we're just going to put this like little distribution hub in the hospital, and kids can come up and they can tap the button and get a beanie. They reached out to us and said, hey, like we'd like to hand this off to a group that does this more regularly and is maintaining programs in hospitals. Would you guys have interest in inheriting this? We'll continue to provide beanies, but we're looking for someone who can kind of take over the vending machines. And initially we were sort of like, vending machines in hospitals,
Right,
like,
right.
I don't know. But then it kind of occurred to us like, well, what if it just wasn't limited to beanies? What if we put like cool gaming swag in here too? And what we would call it? And that's where like the name Safe Point came from. And we thought, the Safe Point, it's kind of a play on like, if you're making progress in a video game, right? You
Right.
come to the Safe Point as a check mark
Mm-hmm.
to then progress further. And so the spirit of that idea was simply, when kids are going through treatment, they can come to the Safe Point machine as they're making progress. It's this kind of source of encouragement and inspiration, maybe incentive as well. Like, hey, if you do this thing, we'll give you more Safe Point tokens. So,
Right, right.
so yeah, and then of course we want to like integrate it more into. So we're kind of inheriting. It's a program that we sort of inherited, and now we're like in the midst of like reconfiguring,
Mm-hmm.
gamifying it, and we see it eventually becoming this sort of new thing. And we're still using the machines to give beanies too, but it's going to also be like cool video game
Oh
codes and
yeah,
items
no,
as
definitely.
well.
So
Yeah.
please tell me that this whole program to kind of fill these save points. Please tell me it's called like reload. The
It
amount of
should,
time,
yes.
the amount of times I've reverted or like reloaded a save. Please tell me that like whatever program these companies are inheriting or donating stuff for is called reload. That'd be amazing.
Yeah, that's actually not a bad idea. We also we're kind of figuring out right now, like, okay, what's like the average cost to like restock the machine entirely?
Mm-hmm.
How long do the items typically last? And then if what we're sort of envisioning is like, let's pretend it's like 3,000 to 5,000 to like fill a machine entirely with random stuff. Like maybe there could be like tiers of like I almost say like tiers of rarity in the
Oh yeah, yeah,
machine,
yeah. No, I
like
get you. I get you. You got
where
loot drops or
there's like basic plushies, and then
yep.
here's like I don't know, like t-shirts and whatnot, and then there's like
Common,
keyboards.
uncommon, rare.
Right. Like you get like rare loot, maybe like so there could be different things like that. But okay, let's say it's like $3,000 to $5,000 to like buy a bunch of items. We need like 200 to 300 items that fit in the machine, and and okay, that's what that looks like. These machines have big video displays, and so in the
Oh
same
yeah.
way we recognize donors on the go-karts, there seems to be a way like we could say, oh, like for this month or this quarter, like this machine, like the items
Oh
were provided
yeah,
by
no,
this
that'd be
group.
rad.
Yeah, so like you could have like a temporary sort of like billboard, basically,
Right.
like kind of like shouting out your group to the hospital folks. So that's kind of the idea, and we're sometimes we have to be a little sensitive around like branding in hospitals, just because for actually a list of reasons, like sometimes hospitals are sort of sensitive around like advertising and things
Right.
that go on within their facility. But we generally think it's a fun idea, so that's kind of where our headspace is at on it.
Oh no,
Like,
that'd
yeah,
be really cool. Like especially they go through, click an item, it's like so and so donated this. Or today's
right,
loot brought to you by kind of
right. I mean, you think about
just loot drops
um,
or drop
yeah, like a
drops.
streamer who's raised
Yep.
money to like help restock a safe point machine, like
Yeah.
their face pops up like
Yeah.
donated by
It's
yeah, that
no,
could be pretty
that'd
cool.
be awesome. Like I mean, especially since then it's like people can actually put something to whatever's helping them. I think overall that's rad because it's really hard sometimes to kind of really understand where some of this stuff is really coming from. Being able to have something, oh, this is thanks to this, their donation or their support, which is freaking cool.
Yep. Yeah, I think one of the things about our work that is intrinsic, and I'm glad that it is, everything we do is very tangible. You know, like when we build our gaming carts, they exist in the hospital indefinitely,
Right.
and we try to recognize the donors and people who made them possible. And with the SafePoint machines, it's similar. It's this piece. It's like a distribution hub in the hospital that can hopefully continuously provide items to people who are stopping through. And it's great, I think, because donors can see that. Even if someone donates $10, you can check our website, and we put out an annual report every year where we, kind of summarize, like, here's where we were last year, here's all the progress we made. And you can say, oh, cool, like clearly the organization has made progress. Or
Right.
if you conduct a fundraiser to build a whole go kart, right? Okay, great, 3,500, get your gaming cart, it goes into the hospital. Then it's living there for a while, and you can hopefully see it and know that it's present. And so, yeah, I think that's one of the cool things about what we do is that we try to be very um, diligent about letting people know, hey, your donation has made a difference. Like, we are making progress every day.
Oh yeah.
And I joke with our team even internally. I'm like, I feel like each day we wake up, it kind of feels like we're playing our favorite MMO. Like,
Yeah.
it's like I can't wait to get on my computer. I mean, it's Saturday morning. I'm talking to you here on our podcast, right?
Right.
I'm,
Right.
I'm
Right.
like, this is what we love to do. It's not just a job for us. This feels like it's like you wake up, you want to make a little more progress each day. Sometimes it's a little grindy. Those Excel spreadsheets can get a little grindy sometimes, but ultimately, it feels really cool to be able to do this, and it's making a difference for people. And it's a fun way to rally the gaming community,
Oh
and
yeah.
do
No.
something impactful.
Most definitely.
Yeah.
Now, circling back later, or I guess a little earlier in our conversation. So those Xbox palettes, you actually go through all those? Still have some of
Those are all gone now.
them.
Yeah. So we actually, I kind of slightly referenced it, but yeah, if you go through our website, there's a
Yeah.
blog article, I think it's either 2014 or 2015. We had donated a bunch of them to Mott Children's
Oh
Hospital. We helped the
yeah, that's
hospital.
right. Yeah.
Yeah, we put a console in every room of the hospital, which is pretty dope.
Holy
So
macaroni. That's
yeah,
that's freaking sweet.
it was pretty cool. Yeah, we used a bunch of them on go karts. Those Xboxes actually, um, yeah, I mean they lasted for a long while. I mean, I think the hospital just recently has been in the midst of like upgrading equipment. So yeah, they got a lot of use
Oh,
over
that's
the years.
awesome.
Yeah,
I
pretty
guess
rad.
so we talking about video obviously so I guess one thing I'm curious about, do you load these with like Netflix or anything?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of apps that just exist on some of these consoles too, right?
Right.
So it's not a lot of work from our team, but it's people. Sometimes it depends on the hospital and like what they allow internet wise
Oh
for
yeah,
kids to
yeah,
access. But
understandably. Firewalls.
yeah, but certainly, I mean, it's possible for people to watch movies. I mean, actually, one of the reasons we used to prefer, like when for the new go karts, we're delivering the Series X consoles. Some hospitals have like, those Blu-ray.
Yep.
I want to say the magazine, but there's like like the Blu-ray holsters.
Yeah,
You
yeah, yeah.
unzip it and it's like the case. There's a lot of hospitals that have like hundreds of Blu-ray movies that they're still using and putting in.
Ow.
Oh yeah, man. I mean, this is like, yeah, this is. There are some hospitals that, like, they're still rocking DVD players, in some places. So we're trying to give them equipment that allows them to
Oh,
step
kind of.
into, yeah, like here's the modern era, but you still have all your old stuff that you can make use of too, if you want. So yeah, like a Series X console, for example, having access to like a Blu-ray player or on PlayStation, is very helpful in that way.
Oh no. I no, I never actually considered that before. Yeah, no, that's makes sense. Makes sense. Um, so man, how permanent? Um, hang out there for, I guess. So with these go-karts, I know ultimately you're providing them, but like say a hospital, they have about like, so you know if there's like a how long they're just allowed to just walk in it. I guess you know a lot of games are really long these, so it's a bit hard to beat Final Fantasy 7 in 2 hours.
Yeah, a lot of that moderation, it just comes down to what the hospital's preferences are and
Right.
what the kids are going through. Certainly, we have some instances where a go kart might get put in a playroom,
Oh,
and kids come through like 20 or 30 kids might play on it in a single day. They're just coming through. There might be other times where the go kart is shared. Kids get it for 2 to 3 hours. They have to check it out. Like there was a hospital in Oakland. I'm not sure if they still manage them this way, but they would have like a list every day where kids got a certain amount of time with the gaming cart.
yep.
So, and sometimes there are kids that like maybe the hospital has plenty of gaming carts, and maybe there's a kid that's they're just going to let this kid borrow it for the entire day or however
Right,
long
right.
they're there. So it really I think depends, and it goes back to kind of the point I was making about the hospitals see such a wide range of circumstances that it's our feeling is it's really best to kind of leave it to them to figure out, hey, do you feel like this kid should have the gaming card? Do you want to like let kids take turns? Because circumstantially that might influence how they sort of provide the device. Yeah.
Right, right. No, makes sense. So overall, you kind of touched on as far as like what you've envisioned for gamers, all of the things. What uh what are you really seeing like gamers outreach? What's your 5 year goal slash vision for gamers outreach? I know like this next week, something that'll be able to figure it. But what's the next thing? What are you thinking?
The big goal is to create a world where we all look back and ask, remember when hospitals didn't have video games?
Right. Ah, okay,
That's
okay.
that's the end game. Like that's the so I mean I think if we sort of the way I sort of think about it is there's like two or three different problems to solve within the hospital so that gaming is a permanent fixture. There's a equipment hardware challenge, there's a content challenge, there's a distribution challenge, and sort of a management challenge. And the programs we've created help sort of address those in different ways. So, I mean, I think when we look at like the gaming carts, for example, those are a tool that help the hospital manage equipment and provide kids with content, particularly if like hardware isn't accessible, right? And so
Right.
every hospital we talk to probably has a certain level of saturation that they'd like to see, where, okay, like Children's Los Angeles has over 100 carts. There are some hospitals that have like two or three and they'd like more, or maybe they're happy because they might only have 20 patient rooms or such.
Right.
So it really depends, but yeah, the big goal is, okay, well, let's walk into Seattle Children's and every room has a gaming experience and kids have something to do while they're receiving care. That's the world where we want to really create. So yeah, and I think you can kind of like that's the big goal, right? And so we've kind of broken into these different chunks of, okay, well, we're gonna have this, the save point machines are gonna be the prizing hubs, the gaming carts are gonna be the hardware tool, the player two volunteers are the knowledge workers. We have another program which we'll share more updates on probably later next year, Portal, that we were sort of incubating within Gamers Outreach.
Oh, okay, okay.
Which really the intent of that is to like turn hospitals into land centers, like really give them the tools. So
yeah.
yeah, it's pretty cool. We're really excited. It's kind of evolved since we announced it like a couple years ago and started noodling on it, and it's evolved a lot in what we want to see it become. So we might share updates around, like we have our event Gamers for Giving.
Yep.
It happens in the next one will be happening in April. Oh, that's actually an exclusive. We haven't announced the date yet. But
ooh. You hear that, everyone?
yes, it'll be happening soon. TM. We just want to put it. Actually, we don't have very many like NDAs at Gamers Outreach. It's more of a we just want to make sure like the announcement is very clear when we make it. So
100% understand. It'd be
But
unfortunate.
when the event happens in the springtime of next year, we might be sharing some more updates around Portal. It just kind of depends on like how ready it is, but definitely within the next year or two. It's a really big project actually, that we're pretty pumped about. That
I
we
mean,
think is going
it
to make a big
sounds awesome. Like, having
yeah.
been around during like have like higher centralized gaming events would be super cool.
Yep. Totally. Totally.
Well, awesome. So I guess one question I have, kind of just like more about the organization. Roughly how big is game? We're going through go-karts all or all around the country as well as some places around the world, but like roughly how many people like
Yeah, there's a team of almost 20 people now at Gamers
wow.
Outreach. Yeah, so our team is kind of structured. So we have a board of directors. So
Yep.
all charities are organized and managed by a board, and those are all volunteer positions. Those are people that we've kind of recruited over the years who've been really big supporters, like folks from the video game industry mostly. Um, and uh, and then we have kind of like a sort of management team, if you will. That's kind of I sort of bounce between board and management team, helping day-to-day
Mm-hmm.
stuff, plus like the boring logistical stuff of like keeping making sure you're doing all your annual reports and such each year. On our managing team, though, we have a internal accountant, Jacqueline, who keeps track of our books. We have a managing director, Walter, who helps like oversee the team each day. Um, and then we're kind of split into operations, marketing, and development.
Oh,
So
okay.
operations oversees all of our program activity within hospitals, and there's 3 people on that team who, as mentioned, kind of are working with hospitals. One of them, there's a guy, George, who provides tech support
Oh,
and
okay.
is updating consoles. We have another guy named Martin who handles shipping, logistics,
Oh,
particularly around
right.
gaming carts. So yeah, there's a lot of things behind the scenes that have to happen to make all the programs work. It turns out. And then we have our development crew, and they are responsible for helping to put together fundraising events. So they would do all the work on Spooktacular. They think about Gamers for Giving. If anyone watching this was one of the streamers participating, like you may have gotten a Twitter DM that was probably from someone on the development team. So their goal is to go out and like, hey, let's go recruit support for what we're doing. We have to help raise money. We want to share this work with people, want to get folks involved, and it doesn't really happen if we don't do that. So they have a really important job, right? Like everything you guys are doing with this marathon, like if it wasn't for these events, there wouldn't be gaming cards in the world. It's pretty much that simple.
Oh, well, thank you. Well, we're
Yeah,
more
big
than willing to
props.
like provide and help support. I mean, honestly, so far as the events that we help contribute to, Gamers Outreach is one of the most exciting as far
That's
as
awesome.
like getting involved with and being able to actually like interact and you know, it it's really neat, especially for like how you've identified that's basically show that people are making it, like especially whether a little bit of like verbiage here or save point. Like overall, it's been super cool. Like, and honestly, this opportunity to even talk to you, freaking cool.
Awesome. No, I'm happy to. I mean, I'm anytime I would talk to people about gamers hours all day if I if it was
Yeah.
possible. So
Well, we got plenty of time.
sweet, man. Yeah, I mean, tell me about it. It's so yeah. I mean, we have and then we have like a marketing team, which I feel like marketing in nonprofit land is it's probably better referred to as storytelling.
Oh, really?
It's really about communicating what's happening in these hospitals. Sharing the stories of the impact people have made, why this is important, et cetera. And those are sort of the various divisions of Gamers Outreach and how we function.
Well, I'm glad that not everyone at Gamers. That's it would have been gotten very
Funny.
confusing.
We actually, I think we do actually have another Zach on
Oh yeah,
Gamers
no, I
Outreach.
know. I think we've been talking with him, and that's actually I think how we got in touch with you was there's Zach, and so I was like, oh man, everyone at
That's
Gamers.
funny. That'd be, yeah, I'm sure an organization with everybody who has the same name would be.
You
It'll get a
know,
little confusing at the office.
no, it makes it really hard to go A to Z when you're just Z.
That would be a problem. Yep.
I guess one question, especially earlier, about how certain hospitals create certain games. I guess overall, is there like some what game you'll put in? I guess so. For instance, like I know one of our members asked quite like they're wondering, are kids playing Outer Worlds or Outer Wilds?
It's actually a really great question, and it's funny because people will sometimes say like, "Oh, are you giving like are the kids playing Grand Theft Auto and Call of Duty?" And
Right.
actually, the answer is sometimes they are.
Oh yeah.
If a kid is like, I mean, I say kid, if they're a young adult, they're 17, 18.
Right.
Sometimes there are like 19 or 20-year-olds in these pediatric hospitals, and they can do what they want, right?
Yeah.
So, um, we anytime we deliver our go karts, we always are installing what is, I would say, unquestionably family friendly content.
Right. Right. Right.
Rocket League,
Yep.
Minecraft,
Yep.
Lego games are probably as controversial as we get. But for really at that point, it's kind of the hospital's preference as well as the people who are using the devices. If a 16-year-old comes into the hospital and they want to play Halo or Call of Duty with their friends, then that's more of a mature game. Great,
Yep.
maybe the hospital lets them do that. Sometimes though too, it's also an infrastructure question. Like I was kind of mentioning this, but there are some hospitals where, maybe the kids aren't able to get on Wi-Fi, or maybe the hospital wants to limit that. Like we had a child who, his parents, just to kind of provide context for this, like there's a kid we were working with who his parents lived like 2 hours away from the hospital.
Yep.
And he was only able to see them on weekends because they had to keep up with work. And he'd been hospitalized for like 8 months. And the hospital had basically found themselves in this situation where they're kind of like pseudo parents. They're like asking this kid. It's probably one of the few times you hear an adult say like, "Hey, did you get on Facebook today?" Like they're trying to encourage him to interact with his friends outside the hospital
Right.
and make sure he was keeping up with them. And they would ask like, "Hey, did you play video games? And did you connect with your friends back home to make sure you're still talking to them?" Yeah, yeah. And so and they're helping him keep up with school and other things too, right? So um, now in that situation, the reason I tell that story is the hospital is kind of like a pseudo parent, right? They are suddenly now taking responsibility to essentially raise this kid for a year of his life, while the parents are trying to work. So
Right.
sometimes there are intentional limitations to make the hospital staff have an easier time doing their job while they're trying to also provide life-saving care to patients. And if a parent gets upset because, oh, my son went on a website he wasn't supposed to, or played a game that they wouldn't have wanted them to,
Yeah.
that can create issues for the hospital potentially.
Right.
So
makes things a little.
yeah, and again, this is highly, in my experience, it's highly situational. Depending on the hospital,
Yep.
how they manage these things. Do they have tools in place to help oversee, what kids might be doing on a network, et cetera. So yeah, from our standpoint, we're just focused on giving hospitals a tool.
Got it.
Like, hey, this is a tool for you to make video game content available in your facility, and you can use it in 100 different ways. It's up to you how you want to make use of it.
Very cool.
Yeah.
So now save points. I understand that these are like ultimately kids are able to press it like a button and get like some. But you mentioned getting like. So I guess that was always one question for me. What's stopping a kid from going up and being like, I want this, I want this, I want this, I want this? Like, is there anything that's like kind of? I guess are there any limits? Is a kid able to get like 5 hats?
I mean, if the hospital wanted them to, probably. Yeah, the way it's sort of been working is we have these like redeemable codes that the hospital can hand out.
I get you.
So if a kid were to like stack the codes potentially, and this is actually, we're like in the midst of kind of revising. There's like a way the machines sort of worked when we got them, and then there's like how we want them to work eventually.
Yep.
And we're in the midst now of like kind of making some edits to it. But yeah, essentially the idea is that the kids would get like kind of a redeemable code. And then they might be able to save those codes, stack them. Like there's all sorts of ways they could do it, but we really, it's another thing that we sort of leave up to the hospital. Like if they think, hey, this kid's gone through a huge surgery, extra codes for sure, versus like I don't know. I'm
No,
it
no,
could be
you're
any.
good. You're good. I
I'm
was
just
just
making
more
up a reason they might give one higher than another,
right, right,
but
right, right, right.
this kid came in for a haircut. Maybe it's less
Yeah.
involved. So there's yeah, I think there's ways that they decide to distribute
No,
those
no,
things.
you're good. Yeah, it's because how the actual rather than just that makes
Yep.
sense.
Yeah.
um, so you have like, would we be able to ever actually this process of carts or vending machines put together? I guess ultimately, what all is there that you really do? Ultimately, you get the carts that you'll be basically just wrap the system and then send them away.
Kinda, yeah. I mean, it's I'd say behind the scenes. So we manufacture the gaming carts ourselves.
Oh, really?
Uh,
Oh,
and that, yeah, we actually invested like hundreds of thousands of dollars in tooling. So we
oh,
own like giant metal plates that like we designed the gaming cart. It stamps out the material.
oh, wow. Okay.
And yeah, we have a factory we work with, and so we make all the parts basically, and then those parts get put into a box,
Yep.
and then they come to our fulfillment center in Texas,
Yep.
and then and it's changed. This is the new way it works, I should say.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
No, you're
they
good.
go to our center in Texas, and
Yep.
then we also have people who will we put together like the peripheral box as
Oh,
well. So
okay.
that's like the custom items that the hospital might want, like Xbox versus PlayStation versus Switch or whatever. So those go into a box, and so the hospital gets two boxes. Is the way it's going to work now. One box is the go kart, the other box is the accessory box, and then when the hospital receives it, they can open those boxes and put everything together and start using the cart. We'll sometimes offer volunteers the opportunity to go and like help the hospital assemble the units, which is always really fun. It just kind of depends on the hospital's willingness to facilitate that.
Right.
And I feel like most of the time they're pretty willing to like let people come by and just, hey, as long as they're in like a public area,
Yeah.
it's pretty simple. I mean, I personally, before Gamers Outreach, before we had a team, I think I had set foot in about 100 hospitals across the U.S. because there was no one else to set up the units.
Oh,
I was
man.
the only person. Yeah, so I was going around to all these different hospitals, supporting some of the initial deliveries. So which was actually good in hindsight because that's kind of how I learned a lot about all the different hospitals and how they all function different from one another and all that kind of thing. So it was actually a really good exercise to have done. But yeah, nowadays, if someone builds gaming carts and they want to deliver those to the hospital, we'll try to reach out to the hospital. And if it's helpful, they can come and hopefully assemble them. But it's up to the hospital in a lot of cases.
Right. Right. Right.
Yeah.
Are they fairly easy?
Oh yeah, yeah. Actually, it's the new ones especially.
Oh, yeah.
I'm so excited because I feel like it takes longer to get it out of the box than it does to like actually set it up, which is
Oh, really?
yeah.
That's reassuring.
Yeah, it's basically a toolless assembly. I mean, the only thing you need is like a screwdriver to like mount the monitor, but otherwise everything we have these big hand screws that go into the different parts and you just put the thing together and it works. Yeah. Hey, we got rated.
Oh,
Hooray.
yeah, I know. Sorry about that.
That's okay.
Welcome, everybody. Oh, shoot. Guess we got two ratings. Thank you, bro. Welcome.
That's funny.
There we go. We'll just disable it. Thank you for the fun. But that's pretty rad. So then I guess, well, no, and I personally, but I guess, would you know if there's been like any studies that show, specifically from like patients, like, has there been fancy studies for how this has like affected them?
I was hearing it, but
Yeah, no, you're hearing me perfect. So then this is just strictly an OBS problem that I need to. So go ahead. Sorry.
that's okay. Yeah, I mean, yeah, I'll kind of phrase that a little differently. Are there is there data showing video games help improve patient outcomes? Is the sort of way hospitals refer to
Yeah,
it. So
yeah.
the answer is that yes, and growing, I would say, and maybe evolving is the right word. So um, there's a few different ways to look at this. I think there's one sort of framing of that question is to think about what's referred to as the patient experience in hospitals. And that's kind of a broad phrase describing the overall sentiment a person might feel about the hospital while they're receiving care. So it can include the friendliness of doctors, the quality of food in the cafeteria, how people feel about the noise level in the hospital, the lighting, and are there entertainment offerings for patients, which video games are a part of. So hospitals have these things called PX scores, patient experience scores, and they conduct surveys with patients,
Okay.
asking like, hey, tell us about your perception of the hospital. And this is actually a fairly recent thing. Like I think it was 2005 or 2006. Like they're called HCAP, the HCAP survey, which basically is kind of like a standardized list of questions that hospitals are asking to try to establish, like, okay, well, our how do people feel when they come to our hospital?
Right.
And those first initial surveys went out as sort of recently as 2006. So just to kind of give you a sense of when we say like research and treatment have been the priority and quality of life is kind of taking a back seat, like it's within the last like 17-15 years that now there's more like the standardized metrics around, okay, what does it mean for a hospital to be thinking about patient experience broadly? And so, yeah, I think definitely we're seeing all sorts of data points around video games for sure are creating a better patient experience, right? Which is probably fairly obvious to extrapolate. Clearly, video games are fun for a lot of people. If I have access to video game content while I'm in the hospital, it's gonna help. Now, the other question of like, do video games help with patient outcomes? That can take a few different forms. There's like, okay, did this game help a child get better? Did it help them reach a certain like milestone faster? For example, there's this girl who we got an email from like a physical therapist who was working with a child who was trying to regain the ability to stand. And this girl had to like complete standing exercises throughout the days.
Okay.
So she would get out of bed and stand for a period of time, and then she could sit back down.
Right.
The hospital mentioned to us that she liked to play video games, and they wheeled in one of our gaming carts. And this girl had stood for 3 times as long as she had in previous exercises while she was playing video games. And so there's, it's I think in that sense, video games are more of an incentive, right? Like maybe it's kind of like if you like are listening to your favorite music at the gym, maybe like that one song comes on, you're like, all right, I'm a little more pumped.
Yeah, you get pumped on. You start getting that good pump. You're like, yeah, this is it.
Yeah. So just psychologically, it kind of maybe helps instigate you a little bit further. So I think we see things like that, and we also see instances where if you look at like motion-based games, particularly like virtual reality games, especially, when kids, it's like, hey, we need to help you get moving again, so you can get your strength back or whatever it might be. Certainly those are similar to, other sorts of physical therapy devices, that help people think about moving or weight equipment, et cetera, to get people active. So yes, certainly there is all sorts of data coming out. I mean, some of these things are even starting to get like billing codes where, hey, the hospital used this device for this purpose, and there's a code attached to that allows it to be reimbursed from a medical insurance company of some sort. So yeah, we're definitely seeing it. I mean, I'd say we're probably early days of it for sure, relative to like the hospital world, but yes, yeah. I mean, we have all sorts of case studies where, I mean, we see, it's not like a formal institutional study, but we see this stuff on a daily basis. It's just kind of obvious to us.
Yeah.
And then in terms of like actual studies that are being conducted, if you were to look up some white papers and whatnot from various universities and such, there's been stuff that's been coming out around these topics. Yeah.
So then, I guess one question is I have, so we have, I mean, obviously something's going to help them get VR, but there's also systems. So I guess the question that I really want to ask. So there was like the old game system, the Wii. Are you people still use the Wii Fit? I know that's a bit
Maybe,
that's a very
maybe.
dated question.
No, it's okay. I mean, yeah, it's possible. I mean, I think pretty much for any sort of gaming related, like are people using this or that? It's
Right.
the answer is always going to come down to, does the hospital have access to it? Did somebody request it? Did they bring it in themselves? The answer is definitely possible.
Yeah, I get you.
Yeah. Usually, when we think about gamers outreach programs, we will deliver our gaming devices with current items. If the
Oh,
hospital
okay.
has things from prior years, then it would have been
Right, 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 right.
probably
Obviously,
gonna
you're
go
not
back.
gonna just start loading up on to the newer cards.
Right. Yeah.
All right. Well, that makes sense.
I mean, we could if somebody wanted us to, we could, but
Yeah,
yeah, we
right.
we generally it would look weird, like I mean, I even remember it was like we had some game codes from like Madden 2021 and it was 2022.
Ah.
And we like posted a photo of like a kid playing Madden and someone's like, why didn't you give him 2022 instead of 2021? It's like, dude, calm down. Like this is a 1 year difference.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, back to retro games. I mean, there would definitely be like some person on Twitter or something who'd be like, why did you give them the old Xbox? I think the new one. Or so but yeah, so we generally the comments on the internet aside, I mean, we're giving folks the most modern, items that will hopefully last them for quite a while.
Right, right, right. You're trying to get the most lifetime out of
Yeah,
so
exactly.
that makes sense. Yeah, yeah. I guess one other question that we've had in chat is much more personal question. Give me.
Okay.
Um,
Maybe.
no, 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 don't. It's how do you keep your beard looking?
Oh, stop it.
Oh, shucks.
This is actually more apathetic than it is.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it just kind of comes and goes, and I like trim it down. Yeah.
You're just gonna.
I think I use a 1 razor shave. What's the measurements? Yeah.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
if anyone's looking, yeah. Thank you. I appreciate you though.
Oh,
That's nice
yeah,
of you.
definitely, definitely. Well, I guess that's all the questions that have health. I'm not sure. Is there anything in particular you would back? I know we covered a lot of topics. We discussed a lot of different of the opportunities that people can have over at Gamers Outreach. I guess one thing you kind of touched on it a little earlier, but what other event or opportunity have coming in the future?
Yeah, I mean, I think our next big one is going to be Gamers for Giving, the
Oh,
LAN
yeah,
party,
yeah,
which since I said it'll be happening early April. We'll announce the exact dates
Yep, yep.
probably in a couple weeks. And that event is really it's kind of like a mini E3 for Gamers Outreach. So
Oh, okay.
we host a LAN party, a physical LAN party. We rent like a basketball stadium. We
Oh,
set up
wow.
network infrastructure. People come out, they play video games, and then we stream the event online. So we'll raise money through donations. People are able to come and join us in person if they'd like, or if they'd like to stream from home. We have like a big screen in the room where we'll kind of cycle through people who are broadcasting at home, and it's really fun. So we have a lot of really cool plans for that event this year. We had our first event back post pandemic just last March, so we're pretty pumped to be coming back. And like last year was kind of a warm up, like okay, let's dust off our equipment,
Right.
make sure we still remember how to do this, and it went well, thankfully. So now going into next year, we're gonna add some bells and whistles, and it's gonna be a good time. So yeah, then we end up making like fun program announcements around the event too.
Oh,
So,
perfect, perfect. I guess there was actually one of I completely forgot about up until so obviously we had a big old pandemic a couple of years. How did that affect Gamers Outreach?
we ended up being pretty busy in the sense that, so in our sort of context of, what was going on, we were seeing hospitals asking for video games more than they really ever had before.
Really?
Yeah, I would say like 2020, 21, those 2 years especially. Um, so I'll back up a little bit. When the pandemic really, got going, hospitals basically shut down
Yeah.
all of their volunteering programs. So most children's hospitals, the programs that exist to provide kids and families with activities, like if you think about magicians, therapy dogs,
Yeah,
music
yeah.
therapists, etc., all these things are often provided by volunteers of some sort. People are
Oh,
volunteering to come
yeah.
into the hospital and play music for kids. People are volunteering to manage like the book club that kids have access to. Um, all that stuff got put on hold.
Oof.
So there were kids who would normally be well enough to, go on a playground and, go to the music room or wherever it might be, that were all stuck in their rooms. And so the hospital was, like these kids are bouncing off the walls. The hospital said, please, we need video games. It's like one of the only things the kids can do while they're here. So we found ourselves getting more requests from hospitals than ever. I mean, that's sort of the reason we did our work anyway, but it just was
Right.
more, it was, I think, accentuated by like the reason behind really why we're doing what we're doing at Gamers Outreach was accentuated by the circumstances the pandemic created for a lot of hospitals. So thankfully, the gaming community stepped up. I'll definitely say like more of kind of like a founder entrepreneur hat on I'll put on, I suppose. But
Yeah, yeah.
I was certainly worried just generally, okay, my responsibility is taking care of our team and taking care of the programs at Gamers Outreach. And, when we're fundraising, we're trying to support all this work on an ongoing basis, like what's going to happen here. So, I think overall the game industry stepped up in a big way. The community stepped up in a big way. And people were able to fundraise to help continue supporting the work that was being done already. And we were able to meet, I think, a lot of the requests that hospitals made. And I think the byproduct of that too, again, just strictly thinking about, the context of games, I think a lot of hospitals kind of realized, if they hadn't before, oh, wow, offering these digital experiences, creating opportunities for people to have access to gaming content is really meaningful, can be helpful, especially when things like this pop up. So
Right.
that was sort of how the pandemic ended up functioning for us. And, we just kind of, all of us just dove into the work, as much as we could. Everybody, it was definitely stressful for the team, of course, like it was for anybody, in their own. I was like moving from, I'd been living in downtown Los Angeles. I moved back to Michigan to kind of wait things out, and then
Yeah.
I came back. So I'm actually in the midst of moving right now. I'm actually just now finally settling from the pandemic, really.
Oh, really,
So,
really?
yeah, because I like come back to LA. There was a building that was being constructed I wanted to move into, and I like rented this small studio. And I got a little office because I couldn't fit my office stuff in the studio. So now, like, finally things are like totally consolidating. And so yeah, people were obviously dealing with things in their own lives while that was happening. But
Yeah.
then I think the team really came together well, and we were able to support a lot of the requests we were getting, and the community stepped up in a huge way too. I mean, we had some people who conducted some amazing fundraisers that went very well and enabled a lot of the work.
Oh, then I guess we have another question. Have any of the charities worked with for outreach have like an impact on for family?
Like as in, have I been in the hospital sort of thing,
No,
or?
well, I mean, yeah, I guess, the things that you've been doing for Gamers Outreach, they had some form of an impact on
Oh, I see what
your
you're.
family.
Okay,
Yeah,
that
yeah,
makes
yeah.
sense. Yeah, I mean, that's been sort of one of the surreal things about this is like we had a long-time volunteer who his wife was in the hospital having a child, and they wheeled him a gaming cart that he could play while he was waiting for her to go to labor. So yeah, and we've had like family friend, like our board members have had family members who have like been in hospitals. I mean, all of us have. I mean, at this point, like yes, the short answer is yes.
Yeah.
We've had a number of experiences. One thing that I think is really cool is because of how many folks have been involved through the years, nowadays it's not abnormal for us to like go into a restaurant or talk to an Uber driver who has been familiar with our work in some way, which is really cool. And I don't mean that for that to sound like as a boast or anything, just
Yeah,
that
yeah.
it's kind of strange when you go from like, oh, this is something in my parents' basement to I was like in an Uber the other day, and the Uber driver, was asking like, oh, so what do you do for work and such? And I was like, oh, I, have this part of this organization, Gamers Outreach. We bring video games to hospitals, and we build these video game carts. It's kind of what we're most known for. And she was like, "Oh my gosh, my son was just in Children's LA. Is it like the orange cart thing?" And like he was playing on it all the time. And I was like, "Oh no way, yep, that's our thing," you know. So that's kind of like, again, back to like things being really tangible. You know, I assume it's probably similar if you're like an architect. You know, people, they're interacting with your work out in the real world on a regular basis, and so it's pretty cool when you get to hear people like they actually noticed it and remembered it, and it like made a difference in some way for them, you know, and that I think is really, really rad.
Yeah.
And the other day we were at like I was at a restaurant with some friends, and the waiter, we like got into a discussion with the waiter, and he was asking about like what we did for work stuff, and we're like, oh yeah, we'll work in like the video game industry, and he's like, oh, that's neat. Like, what do you guys do? And I was like, well, you know, with a kind of an eclectic group of people actually, but I was like, yeah, I do this group gamers outreach. He's like, oh, I watch some streamers who fundraise for you guys. I think I actually donate. I'm like, oh no way, man, like that's cool. So that's been pretty awesome. So yeah, it does pop up in different forms pretty regularly now. And you know, like I said, I don't really have a I feel very proud of everything that has been accomplished. I'm very thankful for our team who's been involved, and mostly grateful for all the different video game communities that have come together to make the work real. You know, I feel like um, it's really because of these. I mean, it's literally because of the fundraiser like you guys are doing right now that these devices are going to end up in hospitals. You know, so yeah, I mean, I think it's been a big team effort for sure, and I think something we can all be like really, you know, proud of for sure.
Oh, you know, we kind of talked about it a little bit before stream started, but I guess one other thing I'd like to ask for all the people at home: why the name the go kart?
Oh yeah, so Go Kart is an acronym. If you didn't know, it's an acronym for Gamers Outreach Cart.
Yeah.
It seemed clever at the time, and we've kept it. So yes, but we call them go karts. They wheel around the hospital, and yeah, I don't mind. Big brain play. Yeah, it just worked out that way. So it's just a fun name. It does create some funny conversations because we'll talk to hospitals, especially if they aren't familiar with us. When we tell them it's a go kart, they're like, "Oh, is this like a thing kids drive around the hospital?" And funny enough, we were just talking about this before the stream, but someone sent me an article a couple weeks ago that I guess Honda has built these like little electric cars that kids can drive around. They go like maybe 1 mile an hour, right? But like they have like some things that, you know, kids can put medical equipment on, and if they need to be mobile around the hospital, they can hop in this thing and drive it around. And so I was like, oh man, this is gonna create even more confusion now around there. They actually have built real go karts for the hospital. Now we're here. So yeah, but that's what they stand for.
Awesome. That's awesome. All right. Well, I think that basically covers everything. I know in case Chat has any questions, feel free. And yeah, otherwise, this company started back in
2000, yeah, we've
2007.
founded in 2007. Yeah, our very first event was in 2008, but
Oh, okay.
yeah, 2007. I guess technically 2006 if you want to go to like high school video game tournament being canceled, but you know, 07 is on paper.
Go back to the true origin.
Right. Yeah.
Well, thank you for spending all this.
Oh, of course. Yeah.
Is there anything to say about yourself?
No, I'm just appreciative that everybody was involved. I mean, thanks for making the time to reach out and get involved, do these fundraisers, and for having me on the podcast. This is great. It's been a really fun conversation.
Oh, no. This has been a blast. Thank you for coming on out. Yeah, like just answering all our questions.
Yeah,
no
no,
matter
it's
how
no
ridiculous
problem.
they are.
Yeah, and happy. The more ridiculous, the better. Yep. We appreciate it.
Yeah, I guess probably call it here. Thank you again for showing up and giving us a little bit more context behind Game Outreach. And yeah, looking forward to doing more events with you.
Thank you. No, this is awesome. And again, Elijah, thanks for the invite so much. It was really great chatting with you guys, and good luck with the rest of your fundraiser. The amount you're at now already is pretty awesome. So I hope you guys get to the 10.5. That'd be great. It'd be awesome to see you.
Here's hoping. We're trying to get all three.
Fingers crossed. Yeah, I believe in you.
Fingers crossed. Well, probably.
Sounds good. Goodbye, everyone.
See you, Zach. Thank you so much for joining
Yeah.
us today.
Yeah, no problem. Take it easy.
Take it easy.
That's okay. I was gonna end the call, but then I realized like maybe you're still streaming, and
Yeah, no, I technically and fix that.
I didn't want to break anything.
No, no,
I'm
no,
like,
you're
am I
good.
gonna
You're doing
break this
great.
stream? Okay.
I don't mean to make this awkward for you.
No, it's not awkward. It's fine.
Fun for race.
Oh boy. Are we going to someone who's streaming now?
Yep. They're streaming art right now.
They're streaming Ark, you said?
Art.
Okay. Oh, I see. Okay, I was thinking like game, but
No, I know. I was just gonna say, I'm like, not the dinosaur game.
maybe Bob Ross for the children.
Bob Ross for the children. All right. and just one final question.
Oh, well, I have one husky. Do you guys want to see him?
Oh yes, please.
Hang on one second. Let me see if he's.
If he's just hanging out.
Hey, Chewy. Chewy. Nice coming. Chewy. Oh. Chewy. Do you want to say hi? Do you want to say hi to? Do you want to say hi to the stream? Are you having a good day? He's like, what is going on?
What is happening? All right, well, bye, everyone. Thank you.
Everyone, this is Chewbacca. Meet Chewbacca. Yeah.
I should have canceled it. It's Chewbacca. Oh, it's Chewbacca. That's why his name is Chewie.
Chewbacca.
Chewbacca. Even better.
Yep.
Man, I'm sorry. I knew I should have canceled it right then.
That's okay.